Hello once again, Dayton. Thank you for joining us at the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. We are a program that is dedicated to helping folks with their retirement planning needs. Tim, how are you doing this week, my friend?
Doing well, Spike. How about you?
I'm doing okay, although I am paying attention to a lot of the economic factors, a lot of that economic news.
Where are you seeing that? Are they talking about that on the news?
Just a wee bit. It's basically all over the place. You can't escape it. And along with the word inflation that we've heard a lot lately, the next one that we've been getting, and it just seems to be building up and building up, is the recession. And I think, at least statistically, we can say that we are in the midst of a recession.
Well, let's define what that is.
All right, yeah, help me in with that first.
So basically, we are defined in a recession by negative back-to-back growth quarters, which sounds complicated, but basically, you know, we're going backwards for 2 quarters in a row. That's it.
Okay. Well, I mean, recession, it sounds a bit more serious than that. I think some of the other factors that I'm concerned about are the downside market volatility, meaning the losses we've seen in the market, the really high inflation, which we're still feeling in our pocketbooks and our, our bank accounts. Let's say we do it all electronically now anyways, but literally in the purse and the wallet, we're feeling it for reals. And if we're a retiree, it's how do we prepare for this? We haven't seen this kind of recession in, well, at least let's say since 2008. There was a blip of it in 2020 when we were going through COVID, but that was something, that was more of a black swan event. So how about some basic principles? Let's start there. What are some things we can do right now to prepare for what could be, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months of this kind of economic activity?
Well, Spike, I mean, one of the things is having that emergency fund. And that number is different for everyone. Everyone has a different level of comfort on what they feel comfortable having sitting in a bank account, especially with the low interest rates, although those are going up. When you look at the kind of that requirement, you kind of defined it. What if we need 6 months, 12 months? Is that appropriate to have in cash? And I think the answer is yes. I mean, there's other things you can do, but I mean, I think that's
right.
that's a good starter. Living within your means is another one. And so, some of the things that we've seen clients do during times like this is, maybe they had a big vacation planned and they've pushed it off. We saw that definitely in 2020. It was kind of decided for them to some degree. But that is an area where we kind of joke. It's like we can take 2 or 3 vacations in the good times, and maybe we don't take one in the bad times, just to have that extra little buffer.
Right, and these are choices of safety, right? Being prepared for it doesn't mean that you have to, but evaluating what are those importance. I think that might be something we talk about, identifying what are actual needs and what are wants. How would you identify, especially in retirement, the needs?
Well, the needs are your basic living expenses, right? I mean, the things, we joke about them. If you don't pay them, something bad happens. I don't pay my electric bill, they turn off my electric. If I don't pay my water bill, they turn off my water. If I don't pay my taxes on my house, they can take my house away. So your needs are the things that have to be paid. Your wants are everything else. Now, those lines get blurred a little bit when we start talking about, groceries. Do I buy hamburger or do I buy filet mignon? I mean, I would argue you have to eat, but, is filet mignon a need or a want, right?
Absolutely. And then, these are blips that are happening. I want to say the word blips. These are events that are happening right now, and they're very real, and we understand that. But you also talk, even in being recession ready, about having a long-term focus. Is this a time right now to be reacting to markets and all of this negative news, or do we need to stay the course a little bit?
Well, Spike, it depends on how you define reacting. There's reacting where we panic and we make bad choices. And, our wealth management team spends a lot of time making sure that people understand what long-term focus is. And so sometimes there's a reason to make a change in times like these. They have done that this year. They've made adjustments. I've seen them do it, and it's worked out very, very well for our clients. There's other times where they're trying to keep people from making changes because it's not appropriate. And so you really that's really having that conversation with your advisory team and working with somebody that can help you navigate that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still their call. But I think a lot of times if you have a background and an understanding as to the why, it helps you make a better decision.
I love that you do talk about that a lot. It's giving purpose to the money, understanding what it does for you. If you don't mind, I know that you are the creator of the Retirement Blueprint. Explain a little bit more for the folks what that is. I know that you've had television shows out for the last few months, the last couple of years and so forth, but maybe they don't know exactly what the Retirement Blueprint is.
So the Retirement Blueprint is not an event, okay? It's not just a plan, and it is documents, but it's not something that you do and then you're finished with it. It's a process, and it's a lifelong process, and that's what retirement planning is. You have to look at all the different facets. We call it the cornerstones of retirement. Things like tax planning, wealth management, estate planning. All of those are lifelong processes. Looking at, end of life stuff of, what if I spend time in a nursing home? What if I lose a spouse and my income drops 30 or 40%? What is my plan? How am I going to replace that income? And making sure that we have a plan in place. And so the Retirement Blueprint is exactly that. It's that process. It's giving people a peace of mind of some of those things that I've mentioned. And if you don't have that plan, if you don't have an answer to those questions, that's where our team at Axon Planning and Wealth come into play in creating that plan for you.
So we know part of what the problem is right now is you define the recession. We don't know how long it will last. None of us have a crystal ball.
Of course.
But you have different planning strategies for those wanting to be and stay retired. So that's what I'm going to talk about. We're going to have to take a very quick break. Folks, are you concerned about what's happening economically right now? The high inflation, the downside of the market, and being in what we are saying right now is a recession. And no matter how long it might last, will your money last so you can live the lifestyle you want to? If you are unsure, make sure that you get your own complimentary retirement blueprint by calling Tim Lofton and the team right here. 855-684-3485. We're going to continue on how you get recession ready for retirement when we get back right after this.
Unexpected events, like a global pandemic, can turn our world upside down overnight. They can cause volatile shifts that may cause you to question the confidence in your current retirement plan. As a retiree or a pre-retiree, knowing you have a plan that can withstand the worst economic conditions is vital. Contact us today for a complimentary review. Get a second opinion and learn more about our trademark process, the Retirement Blueprint. Let us plan your tomorrow today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. I'm your host, Spike Spengel, and right now for today's retiree, we are talking about the recession that is hitting us right now, that we've been around. How do we prepare for it? One of the things you said, Tim, is now is not the time to procrastinate. We've got to get our financial ducks in a row. What exactly do you mean by that? What are some of the things that you think we should be addressing right now?
Well, sure. I mean, when it comes to retirement planning, I would argue it's never time to procrastinate. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes where we are today, where people are doing it maybe even out of fear. Honestly, it doesn't matter why you decide to get a plan together, but this is a time where we're starting to see more people come to the office because they're worried, they're concerned, and legitimately so. And so, making sure that you understand what you have. A lot of times we talk to clients as they come into the office, and they're bringing us statements, but when we start asking questions, they're not necessarily 100% sure even what they have, how much risk they're taking. That's something you can control, right? And so when you go through difficult times, understanding the risk that you're taking is extremely important, because if not, you get a surprise. Typically people respond in the incorrect way, which is to panic and sell, and usually when things are at their worst.
Those retirement plans that we use at work. These, for most Americans, are the largest bucket of money of savings that we usually have, right? You know,
Yes.
we're working there, we get our match from work, we're there for 20, 30, 40 years. But are people surprised at how much risk is inside their retirement accounts? I'm concerned because I hear this a lot, say, oh, well, it's a work-sponsored plan, so I'm sure my work isn't going to, you know, take too much risk. But really, you're the one choosing the funds. You're the one deciding whether it is risky or not risky. Are people surprised at how much risk is in their retirement accounts when they come to your office?
I think they are. You know, we use that software Riskalyze. We talk about it on the show all the time. It won the Nobel Prize for economics, so it's pretty good software. They don't just give those awards out, I don't think. So a lot of times when they look at the actual risk that they're taking, it doesn't match what they think. Now, not always are they taking more risk than they thought. Sometimes they're taking a lot less risk. But you're right, you're 100% in control of the risk you're choosing. And so when you come through a 10-year period like we've just had, you don't really understand the risk because the volatility that you've experienced has been the good kind of volatility. It's the kind that goes up.
Yeah,
and people love that volatility.
I want to stop because if people don't realize the word volatility is that we use it a lot, and when you think of volatility, you're thinking of downside. Volatility's got two sides to it, upside and downside. We've seen almost 14 years of upside volatility. Now we're dealing with the hard part, and that's when we really equate it to the loss. So we're feeling a lot more of the pain, even though you're still contributing to the account, even though you're still getting that match. I think that's what's concerning for me, is that folks think, well, it's not performing that badly, but if you weren't contributing to that account and if you're not getting that employer match, how about the folks right now who are looking at their accounts and they're seeing 20, 25% of losses? They're a lot more scared than folks who are still working because that downside volatility is taking away chunks of their retirement. There are even folks who are questioning, should I and be able to stay retired right now, correct?
Right. And, well, Spike, you have to remember too, how many years have they been working? You know, if you have an account with, you know, $40,000 or $50,000 in it, and you're putting $10,000 or $15,000 in it, you're not seeing any volatility right now because you're covering all the volatility with your contributions. But if you've been at the company for 30 years and you have a couple $1 million, you're not covering that volatility. You know, a 20% drop at $2 million is 400 grand, right? I mean, that's you're going to notice that.
Yeah.
When you log into the computer and all of a sudden 2 is worth 1.6, you're definitely going to notice that. And so I think, you know, for the viewer audience, it depends where you are in that process. And then, as you were mentioning, if you're already retired and you're not putting anything in fact, maybe you're even taking money out for income,
right,
that is a really big blow to see a 15, 20, 25% decline.
Well, when economic events like this happen, we're calling it a recession right now, we need to consider all of our costs. So inflation happening. How about future taxes? Let's throw the tax conversation into the recession as well. We don't think the taxes are going to be going down. We're in one of the lowest tax environments of basically our lifetimes right now, and $30+ trillion in debt, 31, 32, maybe 40 by the time this show airs. Who knows where that's going to be? We obviously are going to see taxes going up. So as far as the recession, are you building in the tax needs and the tax payments, or even looking at levers to protect ourselves from taxes?
Well, you have to. You have to take a look at the taxes, no matter what. Even in the low tax environment we're in now, we're still building that into the plan because it's still a thing. You know, you mentioned at the beginning of the show, most people have their largest part of their nest egg in something that is tax deferred. That means that they are going to pay taxes on it later. And so as we look at later and you get to later and you start to pull that money out, it has an impact, and you have to build that into your calculations or you're going to get a surprise, right? You're not going to have as much money as you thought you were.
Right, right. Now, another thing I wanted to ask about the retirement blueprint. You are not necessarily a CPA yourself, but you do retirement planning strategies all of the time. It seems like it's a big concern. How do you fit the actual tax element? You don't just talk about it in theory. You can tell people what they should be doing with their tax strategies, but how do you help implement it?
That's a great question. So, you know, I'm not a CPA, I'm not even the wealth management guy, I'm a planning guy. And so my background is planning. For 30 years I've been doing planning. And so we have people who specialize in each of those different areas connected with our office. And so we have an estate planning attorney that does estate planning. We have a CPA that does tax planning. So each of these people that are a fiduciary in their area of expertise are part of that expanded team that we can sit down with a client and give comprehensive planning advice, actually coming from people that is their specialty.
Right, right. Now, with today's retiree, though, we have talked about this before, it's not the same kind of retirement as their parents or even their grandparents, right? We're living longer. There is huge stock market volatility, the recession at hand, inflation. There are a lot of concerns. So for those who are spending sleepless nights and so forth, how do you address just even thinking or tackling the negativity? You're not saying to people, bury your head in the sand and don't pay attention.
No.
But you're saying procrastination is not your friend. This is the time for action?
Well, it starts, again, with a plan. And I know that sounds like a broken record, and it seems like every week we talk about, a plan. But it's exactly that. And specifically to your question, how do you remove volatility from the equation? Well, the answer is by giving your money jobs. If you look at the amount of money that you have to produce income, I would argue that amount of money can't have volatility attached to it. And so you use things like an annuity, for example, that is going to take the market risk out of the equation. It's going to give guaranteed income, and it's going to free up the rest of your nest egg to have volatility and to grow, because I don't have to take income from it. So I can maneuver these ups and downs, even like what we're going through right now. And I think that's the big takeaway from our clients, is that they're not as concerned in today's current environment because of their money has jobs. And so what they are seeing on the volatility side right now really doesn't impact them. I mean, they don't like it when things go up and down, but they're not worried about what's this going to do to my income? What's this going to do to my purchasing power? Is this going to impact our lifestyle? We're not having those conversations.
So the retirement blueprint isn't just a theory. This is what you do. This is what you're putting together for folks every single day in the offices right here in Dayton. Folks, if you would like to get your own retirement blueprint, first of all, the process is complimentary, but you need to reach out to us here. We know that the recession is happening right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Tim, where do we think this is going in the next 6 months, 12 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, because I know that's what's on your mind when it comes to retirement planning. But get your own complimentary retirement blueprint started right now to take a look at your investments, your taxes, Social Security, when should you or should you not take it, not just for you, but also for your spouse? Do you have health care and legacy planning needs all met? That's what the Retirement Blueprint is about. Give us a call right here for your own complimentary review right now, 855-684-3485. More with Tim Lofton and the Retirement Blueprint right after this.
We're passionate about making sure our clients live stress-free in retirement. We do that with the Retirement Blueprint. It's our trademark planning process designed to help you navigate to and through retirement. When you're nearing retirement, it's essential that you have a written plan and know exactly how that plan will work for you. Let us show you how 27 years of experience can make a difference in your plan.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. I'm your host, Spike Spengel, and we are talking about how we get recession ready. And some of the things we have discussed today are making sure you do have that emergency fund, making sure you understand the risk in the investments you have. Let's talk a little bit about income stream. How do you keep that consistent for folks over a long period of retirement when there are so many factors out there that keep changing? We've talked about how taxes are going to change on some folks. We've got the market volatility, instruments, solutions. How do you provide consistent income for someone when we have no idea what's going to happen next in the markets and the economy?
Well, Spike, that answer has changed over time, right? I mean, it used to be, back in the day that, bonds were a great solution. Interest rates were high. You could get a really good flow of income that didn't help with inflation, but it was still predictable income. And then what's happened over the last 25 years is we have seen rates go down, 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 down into where we are today, where people are basically angry at the banks because it seems like I'm paying them to keep my money there.
Yeah.
And so the solutions that have come out have really been pretty amazing. We have seen so much developed by a lot of great companies out there in the world of annuities, for example, that 5 years ago didn't even exist. And it's all based on the age of population, the lack of pensions, and the need for people to create their own pension, their own guaranteed income flow. And so, not that annuities are great for everyone, but when you're looking for something that removes market volatility and provides predictable income, it's a great solution with a portion of the dollars that are, their job is to do that.
And like you said, that's not necessarily the main focus or the only focus of having a distribution or an income strategy, but it could be one of the tools.
It could be.
Just like going into a Home Depot or any sort of, again, garden center like that, there's lots of different tools. There's lots of different plans. And what do you want to build your retirement garden? It really depends, right? It's different for everyone. So on the distribution strategy, let's talk about that. For 30 or 40 years, we've been accumulating. Most of the viewers have been accumulating. But now we've got to smartly start taking from those accounts. This is part of the large conversation that you have with folks. Do you just start taking from the largest accounts first? Do you turn on Social Security as soon as you can? Do you say, all right, I'm going to start the income from that annuity? Which one do you start with?
Well, and that's where the whole planning conversation has to go. And so, we've been talking about, if somebody's going to continue to work, then why would we turn on Social Security? Like, a lot of times it doesn't make sense. So I'm just going to create additional taxable income. And Social Security, especially if you take it early, doesn't like you to work and take Social Security. And so they penalize you through taxation for doing so. And so you have to look at the calculation of what am I going to walk away with? What is my net in the decisions that I make? Yeah. Things like Social Security. If I'm taking money out of an IRA, is that going to put me in a different tax bracket? If I've been smart and I've diversified, maybe I have money in a Roth, which is not taxable on the distribution. I have the money in the IRA. Maybe I have additional savings dollars on the sidelines. And so now you start to have these different tools that you can start to manage your taxes by managing what income you're taking is taxable versus not taxable.
So also the retirement blueprint, it's not just the concept. I think a lot of people have, their retirement plan is crossing their fingers and hoping that we don't run out of money. The retirement blueprint is actually a written strategy. It takes into account all of these different elements. It is an investment strategy. It is a tax review. It is a Social Security and risk review. Also a bit on estate planning. And we've addressed it before. You're not necessarily an attorney, but you understand the importance of having wills, trusts, estates. The retirement blueprint, it kind of sounds like not only the kitchen, but the entire kitchen sink, everything that goes into it.
Well, it was designed for the retiree, Spike. I mean, the whole idea of it, I've been in this business for 30 years, and retirees have a different set of needs than they did in the accumulation phase. When you're saving, you're raising kids, and you're doing things that you have a lot of time to accomplish. When you get to retirement, the time clock is ticking, and so you have a different set of needs. And so the idea behind creating the retirement blueprint was to address those needs and to do it in a way that all things were covered. So many times we see people just focus on the wealth management piece, and I say all the time, if you have a wealth management plan without a retirement plan, you're probably setting yourself
That's
up
an
for failure.
investment strategy, but that's not
Right.
necessarily a retirement strategy.
Exactly.
And maybe you understand that investment strategy, but if you're married, does your spouse understand that investment strategy? What happens if something happens to you? It's nice to have these safety parameters, to have both of you on the same page. And one more thing, though, on that. Some people will say, well, I'm single or my spouse has already passed away. I don't need a retirement plan. Once again, I'm just going to hope my assets will last. Is it just as important for somebody who is single to have a retirement strategy?
Definitely. I mean, you want to make sure that what you have is going to last and that it's going to get you through the different things that can happen to you. Now, there is the situation if you don't have any kids and it's just you, and worst case scenario, you run out of money and you end up in a nursing home and go on Medicaid, then, are your planning needs that great? I would still argue that they are, but,
If you want to be able to retire
if you want
with
to be able
choice.
to retire, sure. But for most people, they want that money to go to someone. And so having a plan accomplishes that.
Right, and making sure that it lasts so you can live that lifestyle you
Sure.
want to. And while we really set this show on the backdrop of, making sure that we're ready for a recession and what's going on, again, it always seems to come back down to what is your personal lifestyle? Do we want to be traveling? Do we want to just make sure that the money lasts? Do we want to make sure it goes to our spouse or partner? And it seems like those are the questions that you're always trying to uncover for folks.
Of course.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for putting together this program. We are going to continue to address all of the complex needs that are going on out there. But before we wrap up, just one last thing. What different things will you address in the retirement blueprint?
Well, it all starts with that first meeting, and again, it's complimentary. We have a process to sit down and ask you all the questions that we need answers to from you to be able to build that plan for you.
Right, and so we'll take a look at the investments. Inside the investments, we'll take a look at the fees, the risk that you're taking, and are they appropriately working for you? Mm-hmm. Maybe there's an outside strategy. We'll take a look at taxes. We've beaten that drum a lot over the last year or so. How important?
As far in addition to the estate plan and making sure that they have their advanced directives and all the things necessary in the event that they become incapacitated.
Right. So make sure that you get your own retirement blueprint. Folks, thank you so much for watching the Retirement Blueprint. To get your retirement blueprints process started, all you've got to do is call the phone number you see right here, 855-684-3485. Tim Lofton and the team are right here in Dayton, and they're standing by to help you with your retirement planning needs. Thank you so much for watching the Retirement Blueprint. Tim and us will be back again next week.